when Bill first contacted me, he talked about this conference and wanted me to talk about my entrepreneur experience. And I told him, I said, I don't consider myself an entrepreneur because my husband started the business. But then I thought, well, actually, I did create something from scratch. And I'll talk about that later. So what happened was in 1975, my husband decided that he wanted to get an advanced degree, and he got a scholarship in University of Iowa. So he, there's a Hawkeye. Yes. So we at that time I just gave birth to our first child, our son, and so I stayed behind 6 months, and he came here by himself, went to University of Iowa, and then 6 months later I came. That's January '76. In Taiwan, I don't know if you all know, some people said that he had been to Taiwan, and Bill did too. Taiwan is like Hawaii. I've never seen snow before. So come to United States in January to Iowa. That was a cultural shock. At first I was really excited because I never seen snow, and see snow falling from the sky was beautiful. But then I had the realization I got stuck in the house forever. It feels like it. And for those of you who come from the Midwest, and you know how that is, the snow stick on the ground, it's hard to drive, and you go outside, you tear frozen on your eyelashes. It never happened to me before. I didn't know what happened there. So the 2 years in Iowa was really fun because being a student, and not really, I was not a student at first. I was home, and for the first time I get to play and with my baby and not working. But then a couple months later I got really bored. So I told my husband, I want to go back to school. So I started taking computer courses. And then after he finished school, we moved to Denver because he's a PhD in hydrology. So Denver is a good place because Denver doesn't have a whole lot of water. Need a lot of people who knows how to handle water. So we came to Denver in '78. That, again, was a second culture shock for me because when I get into the real world, start working, I realized there are two things against me. One is I am minority, first generation immigrant, and I couldn't speak English very well. I could speak some English because when I was in Taiwan, I was working in import-export, so I had to deal with buyers from United States and Europe. So I learned to speak English, but not like this. Every day I have to speak and think English. So I had to quickly learn to do that. And second thing was, for those of us and the older generation know, 70s, 78, 80, early 80s, women are still not equal, right? And so there are two things I had to really work on. One is to work my English and make people think I'm not a foreigner. And second is people don't see me as a woman, see me as equal, that capable of doing things just like all the men around me, because in computer software development, there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of men trying to tell me what to do. And even though I'm small and I don't take that very well. Guys, sorry about that. After 40 years married to my husband, he finally figured that out. So anyway, but the other thing that I said was culture shock was that when I first came to this country, I didn't realize there's a stereotype of Asian people because maybe in Iowa not so, because in Midwest we don't see that many Asian, right? But when you come to big city like Denver, they have some perception of Asian. And let me just read some of the things I think it's pretty accurate description of Asian people. We're passive. We're perceived as lack of leadership skills, so tend not to get management opportunities. We are inarticulate, and we're good in math and science, hardworking, quiet. can speak English. And also model minority. On the surface, model minority is a good, I guess it's a good description, but on the other side is that people expect us to be quiet, not to make waves, just follow orders and just do whatever I tell you to do. So as I start working, I realized that's the stereotype I have to fight to covertly to convince people not everybody is the same, just like people here. We're all old people, but we're not the same. But there are certain expectation of old people and perception of old people, and then we all have to work hard to prove them wrong, right? Only just because you're turned 50 or 60 or 70, you're not productive. That's incorrect. So we have to work hard to change that. The other thing that I had to work hard was something that actually was programmed in my head was my cultural value, which is I wanted to give you an example of the difference between the Eastern and Western culture. Is I usually tell people here when you write an envelope address, the first thing you write is your name, and the second is your street address, and third is your city and country, right? In Taiwan or China, it's just the opposite. You write your city first, your street, and the person, and that's exactly the order of the society. So the country is the most important, and your family and the individual. And so the first thing I noticed when I came to this country was the individualism, which, just like everything else, there's a good thing about it and there's a bad thing about it. The good thing is people get to be free to express themselves, and they can talk about what they wanted to do, and they can have a lot of things just based on their own desire. But on the flip side is that then you forget about the team and the whole environment, and so you tend to do things focus on your own benefit rather than the good of the whole. So in Asian country, we tend to pull ourselves back just because it's going to create family shame or it's going to hurt the society and things like that, and we tend to kind of hide our talent sometimes. As a result of that, a lot of people, even though they are creative, but they tend not to because they don't want it to be the nail that stand up to be pounded down. And also something like we have a lot of respect for authority because we are a country with 4,000 years of history, and we had the emperor, we have all the government officials, and there's a little citizen, us. And so we were taught to respect authorities. And here, the first time when I watched TV, 78 76. Yeah, 76 was an election year, and saw the reporters asking questions of the president, and they, even though they call him Mr. President, but they were not treated them like Mr. President, because in Taiwan, the Mr. President is like emperor. You don't ask him questions, you just say yes, sir. So things like that, I really had to reprogram myself and really sometimes to stand up and speak for myself. Those are the things that I had to do. Bill asked me to talk a little bit about how my husband and I founded PWT. Like I said, I didn't do it. My husband one day decided that he's a very outgoing person, but unfortunately he got a PhD degree, so when he's working for a company, they tend to put him in a technical field, wanted him to be the technical expert on things. And finally he just had enough. He said, I can't do this anymore. I wanted to have my own business. So he just quit his job and then started the company in 87, 9 years after we got to Denver. And at first he didn't know what he wanted to do, but I always believe that if you want to try something, give it a try, even if it doesn't work, you just give it all. Then you, when you laying on your deathbed, you wouldn't feel sorry. Oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. Right. So I didn't know whether he's going to be successful or not, but I just felt I need to support him for his dream. So he quit his job, and I was working and support the family. And the first 4 years, he really didn't know what he wanted to do. And then, so he actually tried all kinds of stuff, even went back to Taiwan and imported some diskettes. Remember those square diskettes? And he imported half container of diskettes and went around trying to sell the diskettes. But by the time the diskette got here, the price is already too high. So we lost a lot of money on that, and he tried a lot of different things. The only thing he didn't want to do was to still be an engineer. But then after 3 years trying this and that, it didn't work. So he realized that he came a full circle. That was what he had to do. So he started looking for opportunities to do work for companies in the engineering field. It just happened that we found out that SBA has a program that will set aside business for minorities. And so we started as that. But I think a lot of people think that minority take that program for granted. I don't know about other companies. We were really, really, really grateful for that opportunity, and we took it very seriously. That's why we were able to build our business from that starting point. Our first contract was in '92. So we were able to build first contract and so on, and build a pretty solid business from that point. And this year is our 25th anniversary. And our company has 87 employees, has revenue about average about $12 to $15 million in the last few years. Has headquartered in Woodridge, Colorado, and we have project offices in Montana and Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah, and Colorado Springs. So relatively speaking, we're at this point pretty solid. So a few years ago, I decided I need to do things I want to do, right? Because my husband had his chance. Now I want to do something I really passionate about. That's what happened was. What happened was I was selected to a national leadership program. It's called Asian Women's Leadership Institute. That program was very different than your normal leadership program. I was able to discover who I was, who I am, and what's my passion. Because I always felt that each person has a mission in life. There's purpose. You come here for a reason. You have to fulfill your mission in order to be a value to this world. So after that program, I volunteered to be a principal of a Chinese school, which my children went to, and at the time I really fought with them because I feel it's important for them to learn Chinese, and they didn't. So the reason was because the way that they taught Chinese was very different than how the regular school was teaching kids. And so when I become principal, I taught the teacher how to learn from the kids, because that's how they learn. They need to have a lot of interaction. And so I did a lot of workshop with the teachers. But then the next project was I started thinking, I gotta do something for my community. I gotta make a difference and make people see us, because as my model minority, we tend to be very quiet, and as a result, invisible. So I start talking to some community leaders and find people who are as passionate as I was. So we started the Colorado Dragon Boat Festival 12 years ago. And the goal was to bring all the Asian communities together, and then we come with this fun event to bring people in and introduce our culture to them. And the first year, when I've never had an event planning experience. So the first year, the operating committee, the volunteers I get together, they asked me, the vendors asked me how many people are going to be here, because the food vendors wanted to know how many food they have to prepare. And the largest Asian event I've been to was 3,000 people. So I said, well, I think reasonable 3,000. So they prepare for 3,000 people. And the first year we had 15,000. So the vendors were very, very happy. They went back and forth 5 times to restock. And finally, they just gave up. But today, this 2012, it's our 12th year, and we had 120,000. So it had grown tremendously. And I started a volunteer, the really serious volunteer, after I was 50. And so if people tell you you cannot have a kid after 50, don't believe them. The volunteer work I've done, I see it as my third child. And I'm very proud of it. So you can have another child after 50. It's just not a physical form. It's something that's as great as a child. So today I brought some program books from this year's festival to let you see what is in the festival. And for those of you who have never been to the festival, promise me, go there, see for yourself, because my goal is I was talking to him and I said he must be a teacher in his past life, because I feel like my life goal is to share, to teach. And so when I put this festival together, I wanted to put a lot of education elements in the festival to teach people about our culture, so you can see it for yourself what is in the program. So that's my story.